Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, we're talking a little Aaron Rodgers news. Woke up today, had a little report from Trey Wingo. Apparently, per sources, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets have had conversations today, meaning yesterday, because this came out at midnight. While nothing is imminent, Rodgers is open to the idea of going to New York. I have not seen anything new from this. It seems like a lot of people are making like, oh, trade is imminent based on Trey Wingo's tweet. So it doesn't seem like there's anything further to this particular point in time. But it's nice to know the Jets are at least having conversations. And this timeline seems to at least make sense based on what we saw from Derek Carr. Like, we sort of like heard this happening. It's like, all right, well, the Jets had conversations with the Packers at some point earlier on. We saw that report. Then it was, okay, well, Carr's going somewhere else. It's like, all right, well, why is he going somewhere else? The Jets were apparently, high up on his list, maybe. Or he always wanted to go to the Saints. And now you have the Jets talking to Aaron Rodgers, which means the Packers have allowed the Jets to talk to Aaron Rodgers. And it seems like everything might be falling into place here just a little bit. And it's exciting to see because the whole speculation has been, is Rodgers going to retire? Is he not going to retire? What's going to happen? Are there other teams that could get involved? And what is it going to cost the Jets to get Aaron Rodgers? I think I'm still a little surprised why Miami's not involved, but that leads me to believe the price is going to be a little bit lower. Maybe we haven't heard of a trade because of the amount of transactions that may have to follow an Aaron Rodgers trade. Like, he may want Cobb, who's going to have a voided contract in the next few days once the new league year starts. Bakhtiari, who's going to have a really big cap hit. Maybe he's getting worked into the trade in some capacity. I could see there being a lot of different levels to this where it's not just Aaron Rodgers. And I kind of said it before where, like, the Jets were going to give up 2 firsts, but that was when I thought the Titans and the Raiders and everything were going to be involved. And the Jets would get the tackle and the quarterback. Now, I don't see that as the most likely situation. I think the Jets are holding on to 13 with all those other teams knocked out. We have the second round pick that appears to be the highest value of the teams that are involved, unless the Titans are sneakily involved. The Dolphins don't have a higher second round pick with us. They already lost their first round pick from tampering with Tom Brady last year, and they traded one of their first round picks in the Bradley Chubb trade. So they don't have a whole lot of firepower unless the Packers are like willing to lift the no NFC teams kind of clause in what they're trying to do as far as trading Rodgers. I don't see any other team other than the Jets that he could come to. Like, in my opinion, if you think he's only going to play 2 years, then why not open it to the NFC and allow him to go to either Washington or San Francisco or one of the NFC South teams if he wants to pick those spots. Now, I do think Rodgers would want to, aside from San Francisco, would probably want to take the Jets. I would imagine like San Francisco, Miami, and the Jets are probably like the 3 teams, if they were to be able to get involved, would be the teams that any quarterback would prefer to go to. So yeah, I think he wants to come to New York. I think his girlfriend lives in New York. So when you get wifey looking good, the hubby's going to follow. Not that they're married, but same idea. Make the lady friend happy, and then you get the quarterback. I love it. Get into some of your comment questions, see what you guys are talking about. I did put a poll question in the chat if you guys want. I haven't really decided. Should I stream for the Pat McAfee show? They haven't said that Rodgers is going to be on, and it seems like he's not planning to go on, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be some surprise pop-up. So, we'll see. I don't know where that threshold is. Right now, it's a pretty overwhelming favorite. You guys want me to stream for it? But that's like a 3-hour stream. I don't know if I'm set to do that, this, and the Talking Jets panel tonight. But we'll see. Frank drops in. Frank says, get it done. I'm crazy about wrist meddling, but I like this one. Ryan, you got to go back on a lot of Boomer takes. He's been spot on for 2 months. Go to his videos. I mean, we've been all talking about Rodgers to the Jets. I don't know what Boomer has or hasn't said recently, but I think he's probably, I don't know if he's necessarily in the know more than, a lot of other people. Trey Yoder says this could be one of the single greatest turning points in Jets history. Yeah, that's what I thought about with like the Favre trade too. Fingers crossed. After the Favre trade, it followed it up with 2 AFC Championship games. So maybe this is the catalyst to trigger the rest of the team. Explosive says, I wish the Packers could make it public and say they are done or are ready to move on from Aaron Rodgers. I think, I feel like the whole league kind of knows it. They don't necessarily have to come out and say it. Jay Spector says, tired of all the rumors. We need a signature on a contract, 2-year commitment. Yeah, you want to see it done. Last time we talked about a quarterback leaning the Jets' way, Derek Carr wound up going to New Orleans. So I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. Owen says, all I know is no matter what happens, we need Anthony Richardson. You'd have to trade up to number 1. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he does go number 1. Moose City drops in and says, realistically, the Jets are a great landing spot for him. I just have a hard time believing it could be my old mentality. Yeah, I think a lot of Jet fans understand that Aaron Rodgers to the Jets makes sense for both Rodgers, for the Jets, for Zach Wilson, like literally all the camps involved. Ownership wants a winning team, perceived playoff mandate, wants to sell tickets, like everything all encompassing. Rodgers just makes a crazy, crazy ton of sense. I think we're all just a little shell-shocked from like not having it our way for the longest time. Maybe this could go, sideways on us. Xavier's not too excited. He says, I have a feeling he's going to stay in Green Bay. Today was the day last year that Rodgers signed his contract with Green Bay, I think, or he told us he was going to return to Green Bay. So maybe today is the day. It's a week before free agency. You'd think that we'd find out today. Reptile Guy says, Rodgers, Hall, Wilson, Moore, Conklin, Carter. That's a scary good offense. Yeah, it's going to be really good. Very excited. We are deep across the entire offensive skill position area, and we have the ability to add another 1 or 2 possibly receivers that Rodgers would want as well. Phil Adams says, how many people are within Rodgers' inner circle? Apparently not too many, but Trey Wingo was the one last year that broke the news that Rodgers would return to Green Bay if Cobb was retained. So I would think Trey Wingo does have sources within the inner circle of at least Green Bay. I don't know if it's necessarily Rodgers. I guess it could be if he knew that Rodgers would come back if Cobb re-signed last year. But Trey Wingo is one of the more prominent guys you'd want to pay attention to here. Joe S. says, Rodgers gives us instant credibility. I completely agree. Moose City says, if we get him, he stays healthy. It's a Super Bowl, to be honest. Yeah, I think the Jets are right now 9th best or 9th highest, betting odds as far as getting to the Super Bowl and winning the big game. I threw $100 on it, plus 2,500. Why not? It's going to be the easiest bet. It's going to be like 5.5 wins or over, right? I'm taking it at 2,500 because I would imagine once the Jets get Rodgers, if they do ultimately get Rodgers, that number is going to change drastically. So throw some money at it, see what happens. Never bet what you cannot afford to lose. Matthew Smith says, now that the season is over, Rodgers won't be on McAfee's show, confirmed. He was on McAfee last week. I don't know what that means. Tigo says, Rodgers won't cost more than a second, and he's only a $15 million cap hit this year, not 40. That gives us so much space to work with. Yeah, Rodgers is absolutely the option as far as who gives you the most financial flexibility while he's playing. After he retires, then it's a little bit more of a shit show. Brian Jacobson says, what do you think it would take to get Justin Fields if other quarterbacks are off the table? I don't want Justin Fields, and I don't see Joe Douglas wanting Justin Fields because him admitting that he took the wrong quarterback and then trading additional assets on top of it to get a quarterback that can't throw the ball right now, I don't think that's on the table in any capacity. I think that is far more far-fetched than like even Herbert coming to the Jets. James says, coaches wanted Carr, but Woody Johnson wants Rodgers. They still believe in Wilson. Maybe Lamar is next on the radar. Yeah, I think Lamar is the next option, and I think it's by 4 o'clock today. I think that's the imposed deadline. It's like, hey, Rodgers, we got to know. Otherwise, we got to pivot. We got to make a move. We cannot drag our feet on this. If you want to come here, you got to want to come here. We have everything that would make sense. Let's get it done. I don't know how much I buy the coaches wanted Carr and Woody wanted Rodgers, because it seems to me that they would want the best quarterback possible. Like I could see Salah saying, "Oh, I want to have Carr because he's readily available." But I think everyone's in lockstep. I don't know. I think the organization overall is split, where like the fan base is split, because the fans some of us want a Carr, some of us want a Rodgers. I think the inside one Jets drive is probably something similar. Kwang Lu says, I am not holding my breath for Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I don't want to hold my breath because like he is so volatile. He could go any different direction. Just like on the edge of my seat all day. Ed says, Aaron Rodgers is conferring with his tarot cards. Who knows? Maybe the stars are in alignment and he's going to want to come here. Tom Cahill, if we sign Rodgers, then get Najigba in the first, we are deadly. I've pivoted a little bit more on Najigba. I still don't want to go receiver in this draft. I'll stand by that. And he may wind up being one of the better guys. I don't know enough about how, like, where would he rank in terms of other good players in the league with their 40-yard dash? Because I predict he's probably going to run in the high 4.5s. I don't think he's not very fast, but his route running is so elite, and he just knows how to make separation. Can he do that without the explosiveness at the NFL level? That's my concern with him. And I like the idea of having a veteran wide receiver in the room, as opposed to maybe needing to have like 8 games for a rookie to get up to speed. I wouldn't hate Najigba. I like the idea of adding weapons. I would prefer a tight end, I think. Dyke Tyson says, also, Salah is a great fit personality-wise. We got his offensive coordinator who he loves. We are a perfect marriage. Yeah, I agree. And I think Rodgers also likes the idea of coming to a defensive head coach, because he then gets to dictate the offense with Hackett. And I think those two guys can be the head coaches and coordinators of the offensive side. Salah can be the head coach of the overall team and the defensive side. And I think both sides are probably pretty happy. I mean, Salah just feels like we shouldn't have turnovers, and we just want to like score points in the red zone. if you do those things, just those, the Jets are probably, favorites to win a Super Bowl. Socrates agrees with me. No, not necessarily agrees with me, but he says Justin Fields sucks. What are you guys smoking? I don't think Fields is a realistic option for the Jets. Tyrone says, Ryan, I think Aaron Rodgers would give his answer during rather he stays at Green Bay or we go for Lamar. In my opinion, what do you think? I think Aaron Rodgers would give his answer. Yeah, I hope he lets us know. I would think that he's talking to the Jets implies that he is coming back and that the Packers have no intention of retaining him. That seems to be where he's going with that. Charles says, I believe that we can handle Rodgers' wishy-washy mentality better than most because of our history with players like him. Yeah, I think he would handle the New York media well. Either that or he's going to self-implode. He'll hate the media after a year. I think that's entirely possible too. Let's see. What else we got? Jay Merweld. What's up, dude? We've got, let's see. Love your dedication to our team, Ryan. Thanks for keeping us informed. Any chance Namath would allow Rodgers to wear number 12? Wow, thank you. I thoroughly enjoy this talking Jets, so it's fun. I have my dadly responsibilities. So even though this broke at midnight, my ass was not doing a live stream at midnight. So I got my coffee here. We are Good to go. Any chance Namath would allow Rodgers to wear number 12? Yes, I think so. Namath has already come out and said he would allow Rodgers to wear number 12, and I think the Jets would have a lot of fun with it. I think the Twitter side of the Jets would be like, oh, we're going to have this little ceremony, and Namath is going to hand over the jersey with number 12, and then it's going to be like an old school like Jet jersey or something like that. They're going to hold it up, and it's going to maybe look like the Namath jersey, but it's going to say Aaron Rodgers on it, or it's going to be like, they'll do something cool, I think, with it. And I think Rodgers would take that as a sign of respect. And Rodgers could also say like, hey, look, it's your number. I shouldn't take that number here. It means so much to this franchise. I'm going to wear number 8. Like, I would respect him if he did that. I would totally respect him if he took the number from Namath because Namath is offering it. I think that gesture is enough where you could kind of go either way on it, and I don't think fans would necessarily be upset. B2B says, I live in Columbus, Ohio, am a huge Jets fan and Buckeyes fan. I love Garrett Wilson, but always thought that Jackson Smith-Njigba was better than Olave and Garrett Wilson. Many Buckeye fans of the same opinion. We loved them all. All right, hey, you've watched them way more than I have, so if you think JSN is the way to go, I'm good with it. I think a top wide receiver is a big need for the New York Jets, not to mention I don't get the vibe that Elijah Moore is going to be here longer than the 1 or 2 years we have Aaron Rodgers. So getting someone in the first round and then having him an additional 3 years beyond that may not be the worst decision. Plus, if you're trying to retain Garrett Wilson in a little bit, having him and then maybe drafting Weipler in the 2nd or 3rd round at center and having Jeremy Ruckert at tight end, having the whole Ohio State Jet team, maybe they like having that and having them all be around each other. Christopher C., what draft research will the Jets actually do on quarterbacks in the draft? I think they're going to do their due diligence, but I think the scouts are. I don't know how much like Douglas is actively involved until the Rodgers things passes. If Rodgers and Lamar both pass and like they wind up not on the Jets, then maybe they start to consider a little bit of drafting a quarterback. But I would say the only way they take a quarterback is if they want that person to be a perennial backup quarterback. And I just don't see that being the case. I think if Rodgers comes, I think Zach Wilson is quarterback 2. And then I think Mike White probably signs with either the Dolphins or the Rams. Ed the Red. See? I figured out your name after I saw it. Last time. Ed the Red says, hey, Ryan, if we mess this up and end up without signing Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers, Woody and the Johnsons have to be kicked out. Woody promised us a veteran quarterback. Rodgers was always our man, and Carr knew it. Yeah, I think we knew Carr wanted the Saints, and I think Carr knew we wanted Rodgers, and we used each other to leverage those opportunities against one another. I think that's ultimately what happened. And really the Jets could have leveraged that situation perfectly, because if the Jets did actually talk to Rodgers yesterday, that could be why Carr ultimately signed, knowing something was imminent. So I definitely feel the Jets need a veteran quarterback, and I would go out and I would target Lamar after Rodgers if he gets the non-exclusive tag. I like the 2 first-round option for Lamar. I just don't think he winds up going to the AFC. I think he winds up in Atlanta. Outside of that, I'm probably leaning Brissett. But we shall see. Anonymous says, would the Packers have to agree on trade compensation for us to talk to Rodgers? I would think so, but I guess they don't necessarily have to. If they allow us to talk to Rodgers, then it's like, hey, we're going to decide the negotiations after that. But I think for their own leverage, it would make sense for them to say, hey, we'll let you talk to Rodgers as soon as you give us a package we want. The only thing is, if Rodgers says he wants to come back and the Packers are like, oh, wait, no, we want to trade you, then things go sideways for them. Brian, what is up, dude? He says, can you imagine what kind of shit show of disinformation quarterback search would be if Manish Mehta was still strong on the beat. Yeah, he was always kind of a headache. I don't know if he was necessarily wrong on a bunch of stuff, but he just like picked fights with everyone and like drove it for clicks and would drive fans up a wall and would like spin narratives in a way that he could to generate the clicks, as opposed to like maybe truthfully reporting something or giving the alternate opinion on something. I don't have a particular example offhand, but dude, he used to drive me bonkers. Citybert says, since McAfee is on YouTube, can you live stream? Not sure. I can live stream. I just can't. I'm not going to show it on the screen. That would be the thing. So it would be us talking about it, like all of us watching McAfee and just having discussions, talking about what's going on and seeing if Rodgers pops on. But yeah, I'm not gonna show it on the screen because if he does go on, he's usually on for like a half hour to an hour. Julio says he'll be more costly than 2 first-rounders, Ryan, and the guaranteed money Lamar wants for quarterback that's not durable is eye-opening. For a quarterback that's not durable is eye-opening. Yeah, but I think put it this way, if it's the non-exclusive tag and it only costs you 2 firsts to get him, and you have to give up the money, 2 firsts for Lamar and the money is fine with me. The fact that the Ravens were willing to give him that money and just were not willing to guarantee the final 2 years, like, yeah, I'll guarantee years 4 and 5 at the same rate that a really smart organization was willing to give him, just not on a guaranteed basis. I think he's going to get 250 fully guaranteed from a few different teams. I don't think we ultimately end up being that team, because I think the Falcons have a better first round pick and we won't be able to beat them. So I think Rodgers is really our main target here. Jesus Jerry Vodka says, hey Ryan, what are your thoughts on having beetroot, bacon, and egg on your hamburger? That sounds horrible. Beetroot. I guess is that an Aaron Rodgers favorite? Citybert says, plot twist, Danny Dimes walks and Jets get him. I wouldn't hate it. I don't think, I think they're going to hit him with at least the non-exclusive franchise tag if they don't get a deal worked out, because if as a Giant fan, I would take 2 first-round picks for Daniel Jones, and then I would then take those picks and try to trade them for Lamar. Like that would be the move if I'm the Giants, because then that sends Lamar to the opposite conference. He comes to New York, where I think he would really – I think Lamar would flourish in New York. Imagine him and Saquon in the backfield. Holy hell. That would be fun. I would be okay with Danny Dimes. I don't love the idea of the 2 first-round picks. If he hit the open market, the $40 million a year doesn't necessarily bother me, because you're paying for hopeful production. You'd probably want it to be like a $60 million guaranteed or something, where it's like a year and a half guaranteed instead of 3 years fully. David D. How soon after he signs are you buying a Rodgers jersey? I don't know. I bought a Favre jersey when we got Favre. I would get a Rodgers jersey. Maybe I get a Namath jersey. I might get a Namath jersey instead of a Rodgers jersey, just because of the number. Julio saying, if we trade down with that 13th pick, we could seriously target John Michael Schmitz, the best interior offensive lineman at the Senior Bowl. I like John Michael Schmitz, but I'm also fine with a few of the other centers that are coming out this year, and I would have no problem with retaining or drafting any one of them in rounds 2 through 5. Silas, guys, why do you want to settle for mid-level quarterbacks like y'all were trying to do with Carr, now Danny Dimes? I would only pivot to Danny Dimes if Rodgers isn't an option. If Rodgers and Lamar are not options, or I guess maybe based on what Lamar's, trade compensation would have to be, Dimes would absolutely be on my list. I have no problem with him. Albert says, Carr saw handwriting on the wall and able to play in a dome and less media pressure sealed the deal along with the money. Yeah, I felt like New Orleans made the most sense based on what he kind of wanted. He wanted a coach that believed in him. The guy that took a chance and drafted him just makes a ton of sense. They have some good weapons over there. I don't know. Let's see. Citybird. Citybird drops in and says, if Aaron Rodgers, 13th pick, more valuable than 2 future firsts because we need to protect him. If it's Aaron Rodgers, the 13th pick is... I would not trade 2 future firsts for Aaron Rodgers. I would much rather give up 13 this year than give up firsts in future years. I don't think it's going to cost that though. I think you can give up a second this year and a conditional pick next year based on performance and him coming back to play. I don't think it's going to cost a whole lot. I think people are going to be a little surprised on where it ultimately shakes out. Fast Carpelito says, Ryan, if Wilson still sucks after 2 years, we will have to draft a quarterback or find one in free agency. We will be right back where we started right here. Yeah, no, that's fine though, because you have to think of the NFL in like 2-year increments. I wouldn't go further than that because the average NFL career length is 3.5 years and the average roster turnover year over year is 30%. It may not seem like that, but by the time Zach Wilson takes the field potentially in 2025, there's only, statistically speaking, there's only going to be 10% of the players that he played with this past year on that team. And you're talking AVT, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson. Like that would be the 10% that winds up staying here. So it's going to be a whole new team around Zach Wilson. But I think you test him out for the next year and a half. You get to decide whether you draft the heir apparent to Rodgers in next year's draft if one falls to you, or if you like what you've seen from Zach, you exercise his 5th-year option, you roll into 2024 with Rodgers one more season, and then you just have a hopeful season of Zach the following year. And maybe they structure Rodgers' contract here in such a way that it allows the Jets to exercise Zach's 5th-year option almost regardless of how they feel about him, because the difference in money, I shouldn't say regardless, but like the difference in money that, I shouldn't say the difference in money. That's a bad way to put that. But maybe it's structured in such a way that Rodgers, if he retires after 2 years, the Jets could exercise Zach's 5th-year option or extend Zach some sort of contract that doesn't pay him as much as the 5th-year option, but maybe extends him for 2 years. So he gets the best opportunity with the New York Jets. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out here. NY Jets Superfan says, Hawk, as a sophomore at 20 years old, he was already better than Olave and Wilson. He's scary good. Trust me, I'm an Ohio State fan. He's amazing, but Harrison Jr. next year is even better. LOL. Yeah, Ohio State just pumps out receivers. He's talking about Jackson Smith-Njigba. His speed scares the shit out of me. Oh, no. Dan F. says Andrew Voorhees might have had a ACL tear at the combine. That's sad. Man, he's going to plummet down draft boards. I would 100% draft him at a later round. I think he's going to be good. But yeah, he's going to fall out of that, second round conversation if he has a torn ACL. Going to have a redshirt year. Dan NY says, dude, I have absolutely had it with Rich Eisen. He's gone from Carr over Rodgers to now saying we'd be better off with Garoppolo. He's a fraud of a Jets fan, and he's dead to me. No, I really like Rich Eisen. I think he's one of the better Jet fans out there. And I think he's speaking from a place of maybe a little bit of concern. I think there's plenty of valid reasons why you may not want Aaron Rodgers in our locker room, and I think if you value your draft picks really highly and you're giving up 2 premium picks, you're also giving up potentially 9 years of control over 2 premium assets for 2 years of maybe a declining Aaron Rodgers, where Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be motivated. He's going to want to go against his former team in New England. He's played in the Northeast. You can at least get to a Super Bowl with competent running game and defense. There's a lot to like about Jimmy G. It's the health that just scares the ever-living life out of me. If Jimmy G was as healthy as like a Carr or a Rodgers, he would have immediately been at least number 2. Like maybe you still have Rodgers as number 1, but Garoppolo would be right neck and neck with Carr if the injuries were not a concern. Jesse Peterson says, as a diehard McAfee listener for years, I can almost guarantee Aaron Rodgers will not be on today. Oftentimes in high-pressure situations, the guys don't press him to come on the show. That's my thinking as well. But at the same time, I could also see this breaking and then him going on Aaron Rodgers or going on Pat McAfee to talk about it in his sly sort of way. I don't know. Maybe it won't happen. We'll see. Oh, look at Phil Adams. He says over 550 people in the house, only 84 likes. Ryan deserves more thumbs up than that. Chat, if you are on the edge of your seat and you feel like you just want this all over at this point, hit that like button because I think we're all in the same boat here. Big Frank says, the only guy I trust is Adam Schefter. I really like Ian Rappaport a lot too. Schefter and Rapp are the two guys. If they tweet it, it generally is factual. Trey Wingo is someone to be reliable, though. He does have sources inside Green Bay. He was the one that broke the Cobb going back to the Packers means Rodgers goes back to the Packers. So something to look at. Apollo Ark says, off topic of quarterbacks, did we get Quinnen Williams signed in the next couple days? No, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Quinnen Williams won't be signed until closer to training camp. It's the same reason that Lamar Jackson isn't going to get traded until that deadline. Deadlines make things happen, and I don't think Quinnen Williams is going to get extended for a little bit of time here. I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen. Nick Hall says, what Jet higher-ups do you think were involved in the conversation with Rodgers yesterday? My guess is Douglas, Saleh, Rex, definitely Hackett, and possibly Woody was in on the meeting. Yeah, I would envision that being a relatively smaller group of people, and I think those 4 or 5 are spot on. You know, maybe there's a situation where you include some other offensive staff, maybe just to give an idea of the direction they think about going, but I think Hackett could represent that pretty well. Those seem like the names you'd want to have in that room. Dyke Tyson says, I think our locker room will love having a future Hall of Fame quarterback on their team, especially our wide receivers. Yeah, well, the wide receivers are going to be excited. And, like, we saw our receivers getting open, so it's just a matter of, like, that quarterback just facilitating the ball. Like, we really just need a game manager, and if Rodgers can be that game manager with the explosive upside of being able to contend with a Josh Allen, a Herbert, a Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, then gravy. That is awesome. Julio says, don't ever think about trading Elijah if we get Rodgers. He'll make Elijah a star. The kid was free 90% of his routes last year. Yeah, I don't want to trade Elijah. That would be silly. I think Elijah probably plays out his contract here for the next 2 years, and then we let him walk in free agency, or if things go sideways year 2 of Rodgers, maybe you consider trading him at that point. But I think the Jets are at a point now where you want to start getting compensation picks for your good players that you cannot retain. But hopefully Elijah Moore kind of changes his tune a little bit with good quarterback play. Tigo says, is there any validity to the report that Rodgers trade might look like a Goff trade where the Rams sent picks with Goff for Stafford for Detroit to make the contract, especially if Bakhtiari is included? Holy hell, that would be awesome. If it was structured similarly to the Goff trade where the Rams wanted to get off of the Goff, I guess they were getting out of the Goff contract. That's why the picks were also sent. Now I'm confused. Where the Rams sent picks with Goff. I don't know what were the picks. Do you guys know what the picks were as far as what came over with Goff? I don't remember exactly what it is, but that would be cool. If the Jets, instead of the Packers eating money, the Jets eat the money, but we get a few picks back on like the back end. Like maybe it's extra 3rd or 4th round picks and we give the 1st round pick or something squirrely like that. I feel like the Packers want to have 13. That's sort of like where I've felt for a while here, but I don't see any other team being involved. So you'd have to create something really interesting to be able to get that pick if that's what they're looking for. I do think it's going to be for more than just Rodgers, though. I think that's the hang-up. Morning, Ryan and Gangrene family. See, you have your cup of coffee, too. Jackson Smith-Njigba is like Antonio Brown before the concussion made him crazy. He's better than both Garrett and Olave, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is better than all three and is like Randy Moss and Megatron. If that's the case, I'm all about it. Westchester Unchained said, Pat McAfee said the Rodgers coming on Tuesday is only in-season thing. Sure, but he's also done it the last few weeks, so it's not just an in-season thing. Ricky, New York says, Ryan, you want some insider news on draft. With a near complete roster and ability to make luxury picks, Eagles will use first-round pick on Bijan Robinson and a second first on Jackson Smith-Njigba. Yeah, I think Bijan Robinson is 100% going to the Eagles. That makes so much sense for them with the 10 pick. I think they would have been on the Josh Jacobs conversation because of him playing with Hurts at Alabama, but I think when you have the opportunity to select the best running back in the draft and it's a luxury pick, yeah, I think that's a home run. They'd be silly not to make that pick. As far as Jackson Smith-Njigba, I don't know where else the Eagles go. I would think they may go defense because I think they might lose Fletcher Cox, and I think Brandon Graham's pretty old, if I'm not mistaken. Ooh, it's Mo says, Aaron Jones just said on live TV that Rodgers is in New York. This isn't a drill. Oh boy. Oh boy. It's happening. Jets. Paulie says, which tight ends are you high on in the draft, and are you as high on them as some seem to be? Yeah, I'm higher on the tight ends than I am on the receivers. I would prefer to maybe pass on receiver because I don't know if Conklin or Uzoma is going to be here next year. I at least know Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson are definitely going to be here. I would tend to lean towards maybe a trade down in the first, pick up a few extra picks. Maybe you draft a big mother trucker from Georgia, Darnell Washington, and he can be your de facto swing tackle or like extra blocker on one side while also just having a massive frame to go get a ball. I don't know. There's a few different tight ends that I do like. Where I sort of struggle is like I really want offensive line more than anything else. I think that's going to help the running backs, the quarterback, the receivers, like everything else if you go offensive line. That's my only hang up on the tight end side of things. But the Jets feel they can get a tackle a little bit later or a center a little bit later and they want to pull the trigger on a tight end a little earlier. I'm okay with it. So Tico says it was Goff, 2 firsts, and a third for Stafford. So if the Jets were to... So they trade the quarterback and they get the picks like that. I don't know. If Goff was 2 firsts and a third... I guess they valued Stafford really, really highly. So that contract that he was on, or no, Goff's contract must have been crippling enough to take. I don't know. The inner workings of like the contract and getting picks to take on money is so subjective because I feel like that depends on the GM and the owner more than anything else, and the value assigned to Rodgers versus someone else. Because Goff and Stafford, clearly Stafford was the favorable quarterback at the time, and you give it the 2 firsts. I would think it's because the Goff contract was wonky. Just When Jets says, we need a proven wide receiver burner. Yeah, I would prefer to go with a different profile than Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think that's the reason I don't particularly want to go that route. I think he doesn't necessarily provide something different. I think he could be a Corey Davis replacement, which if you like that, that's cool. I would like to see someone that could, like a Denzel Mims that could take the top off of defense. Hopefully we see that. Maybe we don't have to draft someone. And then the other option would be like a really big-bodied guy that could go up and get a jump ball. But again, I guess if you're having the sound route running Route running is going to last a lot longer than natural physical like speed or skill or things like that. So maybe he has a longer shelf life due to that. I'm concerned at the NFL level, the lack of speed. I really don't think he's very fast. He is good though. Rusty Spooner says, kills me to say it because of my hatred for Michigan, but tight end Luke Schoonmaker, 6'6", 253 pounds, catches everything, can block really good, and has a high football IQ. He's like Kittle. I'll have to watch him then, because if that's the case, Jets should make a move on him. If you think there's someone like Kittle out there, you got to make a move. Chris said, I love how Jets were mocked for taking Brees, but now the Eagles are going to be geniuses for taking Bijan at 10. No, I think it's different. I think the Eagles were just in the Super Bowl. When you're a Super Bowl team, loading up with weapons like a top running back is not insane to think at all. The Bills were rumored to try and get up for Brees Hall. So like those types of teams are the ones that do take that swing. The Jets were, at least in my opinion, perceived to be a little bit further out, and I thought we'd be wasting a year of Brees Hall, which ultimately we did end up doing by way of not making the playoffs and him getting injured. But I think the Eagles selecting a running back when they have an extra first-round pick means they get a young stud for 5 years cheap, where the Jets are getting now a young stud for 3 years cheap. So there is benefit and cost analysis that goes on. Silas says, Ryan, we should do a mock draft with the theme of Rodgers getting traded to us and a trade down. We could do that. I think Green Bean just did one of those last night on his Monday night stream. But yeah, we could do something like that. Maybe I'll bring back, maybe I'll bring back the member-only 10 o'clock mock. That's what I was doing. That was fun for a little bit. I think I did that last year. Then we can have our conversations. Nick Hall says the Jets can definitely get away with only giving up a second and a conditional for Rodgers. Keep their first this year. I completely agree. I think that's all it's going to take. I think it'll be a conditional. I think it'll be a second this year plus a conditional pick next year. And Joe Douglas will then try to trade down from 13 to recoup that second that we wind up sending over there. Jennifer makes a good point. Goff was a Super Bowl experienced young quarterback too, so there is a difference in there, I guess. But it is crazy to think like he was a Super Bowl experienced young quarterback and he was traded along with 2 firsts and a third just to get an aging quarterback with potentially back problems in Stafford. I don't know. I think there's going to be more players involved in this Rodgers trade. I don't think it's just Rodgers. I think we're going to try and get Bakhtiari as well. Oh, well, speak of the devil. Brad comes in. As a Packers fan, hear me out. Rodgers and Bakhtiari for 3 firsts. Ha, yeah, okay. That's not happening. I do think Rodgers and Bakhtiari could wind up coming. We're not giving up. I think that's the only way you could get a first from us. There's no way the Jets are giving up multiple ones to get an injury-prone, aging tackle when we have our tackle that we just found out is coming back, yesterday. That's not happening. Fast Carapiloto says, Ryan, how disappointing Jet fans will be, including myself, if the Jets don't make the playoffs with Rodgers. Yeah, I mean, it'll be a failure of a season. And I think if the Jets don't make the playoffs, short of like some catastrophic injury that prevented the whole thing or something really squirrely happening, I think there would be some big issues here. Jesus Jerry Vodka says, thank goodness we didn't get Derek Carr. Sounds like a Boston accent there. David Hall Jr. says, Jamal Adams was a blessing for us. Sadly, it wasn't for 3 first-round picks. Yeah, could you imagine? The fact that we got 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams is nothing short of amazing. Like, he's ultimately going to turn into like Elijah Vera Tucker and Garrett Wilson. Like probably our 2 best offensive players. I mean, Brees Hall is, I would say, 2 of our 3 best offensive players is what you traded what did he wind up getting? Like $16 million for a strong safety? Oh, he has 8 sacks or 9 sacks or whatever. Oh, great. Awesome. Sounds wonderful. For an edge rusher. He paid $16 million for 8 sacks from an edge rusher? Stupid. Tigo says, if we take on Bakhtiari and Rodgers, we are doing Green Bay a massive favor by taking those horrible contracts. I would expect a second attached to that and for us to send a third. The only thing is the Packers don't save a whole lot of money by moving on from Bakhtiari. Like, they gave him I think it was a pretty big signing bonus, which means there's a lot of dead cap hit. So, like, while the Packers would give up those contracts, because obviously you have the $58 million bonus coming from Rodgers, and I believe there's like a $7 or $10 million option bonus for Bakhtiari at the start of the new league year. So I think it's on the 17th that option kicks in for them, and then they'll have to decide there. I could see Bakhtiari and Rodgers coming over, and then Bakhtiari starting with Brown, like, hey, look, we're going to have you as the backup here. You're going to collect your money regardless. We don't necessarily trust the big guy on the other side to stay healthy. I could see it. I just don't know what it's going to cost. Ricky says, trade 13 for Sutton now. I really like Cortland Sutton. I would prefer to go the veteran wide receiver route if we look that route. I would say, hey, let's poke around Corey Davis if he wants to come back. If Rodgers wants to keep him, I would look at Cortland Sutton. I would look at DeAndre Hopkins. I would look at Michael Thomas. I would look at Odell Beckham Jr. I would look all over the place, and I think that would be a smart move to complement our wide receiver room. Muttviles says, Ryan, all I ask is please Jets don't repeat what happened after 1 year of Favre in 2009. I would love to go to back-to-back AFC Championship games, Muttviles, and I would love to trade up for a quarterback after 1 year and give up virtually nothing. The trade up for Mark Sanchez was like one of the best trades that ever happened for the Jets in terms of going up to go get your quarterback. Now, unfortunately, Sanchez just didn't work out, but the move from whatever pick we were at to jump up to number, was it 5, I think is what we selected him at? We gave up like nothing. It was like role players. So I would take the same conditions. I just hope that Rodgers doesn't get fed up and like quit after a year. That would make me sad. Trey Yoder says, today is the day, boys. Get ready. Daddy Rodgers is coming home. Fingers crossed. Explosive says, what would we have to give up to get Matt Ryan? I think Matt Ryan's going to get cut. I think they're going to move on from him. Common. Sutton has a high drop rate. I did not know that. Interesting. I would say if Hackett and the wide receiver coach like him, I'm good with it. Jay Claus says, Matt Ryan could be acquired for a yoo-hoo and a moon pie. Rico the Pup says, Cortland Sutton or Mike Evans would be awesome. How old is Mike Evans? He was drafted in 2006, 17, 15? I think it was 15. Let's see. Mike Evans is 29 years old. I mean, damn, he's exciting. He wants to go running for a ring. I would like Evans of those two. I think he's really good. But are you willing to give up 13 to get him? Or is his contract maybe in such a situation? Let's see what his contract looks like. All right, so Mike Evans' contract... He's got no guaranteed money left. If he's traded, it's only $13 million. Oh, hell yeah. Yep, I would do that. Yeah, I'd do that all day. That would be really, really cool. And he's played in like almost every season. Like dating back to his rookie year in 2014, 15, 15, 16, 14, 16, 13, 16, 16, 15. That's a lot of games. If you know you're getting that much, and his lowest amount of touchdowns he ever got was, I guess his second year was 3. 12, 3, 12, 5, 8, 8, 13, 14, 6. I would go with, Evans would be fun. I would like Evans for $13 million over some other guys. Silas says, I see Matt Ryan taking snaps for the Jets next year. I'll start heavily drinking. Yeah, no, I don't want to. I don't want to see that either. If we wind up watching the McAfee show, I should have like a happy beer and a sad beer. It's like depending on what happens. It's 2:22 a.m. I need news. Jerry, Jesus, vodka, whatever. Where are you from? That it's 2:22 a.m. Gotta let me know. Rico said he came in the same year as OBJ and Watkins. Yeah, no, I know that. I just wasn't sure what his actual age was. So 29 or 30 years old. Get down with that. Julio Rivera says, Ryan, are we keeping Lawson and Mosley? I think a lot of it has to do with who comes in at quarterback. If Rodgers comes in at quarterback, I think there's a very high likelihood that Mosley's retained. I do think Quan Alexander's gone. I think he's going to Houston. I think he's going to play for D'Amico Ryans, and I think he'll follow the money there after signing a $1.2 million deal with us last year. I don't think we're going to be the top bidder for Quan. For Lawson would have to restructure, and if he wanted to be here for the next 3 years and make his cap hit much lower than the $15 million hit he's about to hit us with, I'd be okay with it. I was talking with Tigo yesterday about the idea of possibly moving on from Bryce Huff if he were to be included in a trade in some capacity, because he only has the 1 year of production. You're hitting him with the second round tender. I don't know. I'd like to hold on to Huff. I wouldn't want to see him go. I would probably... You're banking on 1 year production from Huff, where you're hoping Lawson now hits his stride after the Achilles injury. I would tend to lean getting rid of Lawson, retaining Huff, and then restructuring Mosley to try and bring back Quincy Williams. At the very least, I think you should restructure Mosley to bring him back for the next 2 years. But if you don't get Rodgers, then I think you may just cut Mosley and figure something else out. Tyrone says, Ryan, could you see Garrett Wilson and DeAndre Hopkins playing together better than Corey Davis? I think Hopkins would be on the field more frequently than Davis. I liked Corey Davis. I thought it was a good swing that we took. I'm bummed that he couldn't be on the field all the time. Ricky says, Sutton has 2 years left at $15 million per. I would send 13 right now. So he actually... Let me pull up his contract. He does have that, but he's going to want money. He's only guaranteed $14 million remaining for his salary. So if he's traded, he gets $14 million in 2028, $13 million in 2029, $13.5 million in 2025. So he's signed for the next 3 years at what would be contracted 14, 13, 13.5. So maybe you guarantee him all 3 years in a trade. The only thing you just got to bank on him being healthy. Joey, I heard some people talking about this the other day. How about Rivers at quarterback? There was speculation that Rivers may come out of retirement for either San Francisco or Miami, I think is what he was talking about. I don't want to go that route. I would definitely not prefer that. Although admittedly, I did not watch enough of Rivers his final year to know if he's even remotely, okay. I would say no to that though. Oreo says, how confident are you in Rodgers coming? I'm not getting my hopes up. We've been kicked in the nuts so many times. If we miss Rodgers, I assume the third option is injury-prone Jimmy G. I think we'll poke around Lamar if Rodgers doesn't come here, but I think Jimmy G would be our next target, and we would pay... We would then be getting in more of a bidding war with the Raiders, I think, at that point. And I don't know how likely it is that Jimmy G wants to come back to a Shanahan disciple after the Shanahan tree tried to throw him away. So I don't know if that's realistic from Jimmy's perspective, but I would think the Jets do like Jimmy G, and I think he can get you to a Super Bowl with the level of play that we currently have. Just when Jet says, I would pay $5 to $6 million for Quan. Yeah, I would do that. I had predicted $4 million a year, so $5 or $6 million is okay if we're contending with Houston. No, sorry, Tigo. Tigo says, hey, I never said trade Huff. That's right. Someone sent in a super chat suggesting we hit Huff with a second round tender and saying that Tigo and I said we would want to keep him, but could understand the idea of possibly moving on from him given the 1 year of production. Or he said, didn't expect you to start a stream here at 6 a.m. here in Cali. Yeah, I saw the news when I woke up at like 7 o'clock. I was like, I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to have my coffee. And, Shay's taking a nap right now, so I'm able to do this. Jesus Jerry Vodka says, Huff, has he been tendered yet? No, not yet. I wonder, does the tender have to come down by the same time as the franchise tag tenders? Is that like a tender deadline, or is it just a franchise tag deadline? I don't actually know that, because we might have to hear about that by 4 o'clock. Rico the pup. Philip Rivers has like 47 kids. He probably needs another paycheck. Yeah, once that dude starts paying for college, oof. William says, Ryan, the curse is broken. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Jet Nation 2013 says, are you people out of your mind? Cortland Sutton is not good. Averages 800 yards a year and 3 touchdowns when healthy. Who were his quarterbacks for that? That's what I would like to know, because I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be significantly better than all the quarterbacks that he has played with. Joseph Ortiz says, does Johnny get sick of ice cream after Rodgers comes to the Jets? I think we should start a GoFundMe for Johnny's dentist appointments. That's what we should do, because Johnny's getting cavities. We're going to have too many wins. Johnny, Daddy's going broke. We're going to start a GoFundMe for the ice cream, let alone the cavities as it's going to come after it. 20 victories next year, right? 17 wins plus 3 playoffs. Going to happen. 20 ice creams. Journey with Jay says, what are your thoughts of Seattle paying Geno? Too much or well-deserved? I think it's well-deserved. Good on Geno. I really was excited to see Geno Smith play for us in 2015, and when he got punched in the mouth, I knew it was over in New York for him, and that made me really sad because I saw the hopeful upside that we are now seeing from Geno right now, and I think it did take a lot of time of him being in the league to mature, to understand what he needed to do, and for the league to evolve to kind of suit Geno's skill set maybe a little bit more. And he's in the right situation there. I do think that Seattle would be wise to go out and try to get Anthony Richardson if they can trade up to number 1, or they think he can fall to them at number 5. I think that's the move. Let him sit and learn behind Geno Smith. $35 million a year for Geno Smith. If you had told me that's what Geno's going to make, before this year, I would have laughed. I would have fallen off my couch. But yeah, good for Geno. I'm glad he did well. I never want to see anything. Never wish, bad things on people. DeWedge says Zuck Wilson is a quarterback. He is under contract. A new offensive coordinator coming in. Sign Mike White on a cheap contract. Sign Baker Mayfield to a cheap contract. Shore up the O-line. Go Jets. I think there does become a point where the Jets pivot a little bit from like the higher price guys. And I would say after Jimmy G is where that probably happens. I would, if Jimmy G, like let's say Rodgers doesn't happen, Lamar doesn't happen, Jimmy G doesn't happen, and like Tannehill stays in Tennessee, I would say you're probably, I would look at like a Brissett versus Mike White competition with Zach Wilson still getting the redshirt year. Like I'd like the Jets to come out and say like, Zach's not playing this year. Like he is getting the mental reset. That's the way I think you'd have to approach it this year. If everything else goes, to crap. That reptile guy says, why would Green Bay allow us to talk to Rodgers unless compensation has been agreed upon? Otherwise, that's tampering. Well, Green Bay can allow us to talk to him without compensation going over, and that would not be tampering, because as long as Green Bay allows it, we can discuss, it all day. And if we get the feeling from Rodgers like, hey, the only reason I would play in New York is if you get X, Y, Z, now you have to figure out the compensation to get those other players to bring him in. I think that's the conversation that's happening right now. So I don't necessarily think a trade was agreed upon. Like maybe the Jets and Packers agreed on a trade specifically for Rodgers, and then Rodgers is saying, hey, look, I'll play for the Jets, but I need Cobb. I need Bakhtiari. I need Lazard. These are the guys that are coming with me if I'm coming with you. And that's why I think the trade compensation could be a little bit higher, because you're getting additional players as well. Well, so it says watching Richie and Ryan at the same time. Yeah, throw us both on. I should have asked Richie if he wanted to hop over here. The real Ruck. Doesn't he have an ice cream truck now? I saw a wrapped ice cream truck. I don't know if that's specifically Johnny's or if that was just like a fun thing to do at the Pro Bowl. Ryan, do you have a fur coat ordered as of yet? I don't. If someone finds a really good fur coat, send me a link to it, because I've always wanted one of those big thrift shop, like heavy fur coats. Like I remember being in college singing thrift shop with like all my buddies when Macklemore dropped that song, and I love the idea of having just like a massively ridiculous fur coat with big shades on. I'd rock that. I would totally wear that. I wear a pilot hat. I would totally wear a ridiculous oversized coat. Kevin S. says, I like Keenan Allen, but he's getting up there, and I feel like he's going to be hit by nagging injuries for the rest of his career. The Chargers are interesting because they're going to have to pay Herbert a ton of money this offseason, and does that allow them to keep some of their players? Like, are they going to give him like that Mahomes-level contract that then keeps moving year after year after year, so it allows you to retain players each season? I like Keenan Allen. Dupacabra says, Cortland Sutton is one of the best jump ball receivers in the league. Rodgers would like that. Yeah, I think Rodgers likes the idea of slinging it downfield and having someone go up and get that ball. And if Sutton is good at that, then I would see that as a potential fit. I would hope that Mims can be that burner as well, and you kind of have a few different options at wide receiver there. Mega Vegan says, any chance the Jets have an agreement with Green Bay for either Rodgers or Love, and we're just waiting on Rodgers' decision? I would be surprised if it was for Love. I would be really pumped because it seems like the Packers do want to move on with him as opposed to Rodgers. But if Rodgers digs his heels in and he wants to stay, last time the Packers developed a quarterback, it worked out all right. And I think Love does fit the athletic profile you're trying to have with a quarterback. So in a situation where you say, hey, we'll trade for Jordan Love, we'll exercise his fifth-year option immediately, because if you trade for Love, you have Love versus Wilson now, and then the fifth-year option of Love, which is, he hasn't played enough to get the highest level one, so it'll be a lower, it might be like a $20 million option. Maybe not even a $20 million option. It might be lower than that. Or I think they were talking $23 million option. Was that? My wires are getting crossed now. But if you exercise Love's option, then you can have Love versus Zach in Zach's final year, and then you sign whoever is better after that. There's a situation where I could see that happening. I hope it's for Carr. Don't know why we don't just steal Paxton Lynch from the XFL. He's winning. I don't want Paxton Lynch. Jedi Spooner. Don't cross streams, Ryan. It's guy code. Oh, yeah, me and Richie having a sword fight. Oh, Jesus. Cooper says, Ryan, what's a reasonable contract you would give Quinnen Williams that is valuable but doesn't kill the cap? So I would go to Quinnen Williams and say, hey, we want to sign you long-term. We think you are a critical piece to this team, and we want to make you a very high-paid player. Quinnen Williams understands that we have his rights for $9.5 million this year. He understands we could franchise tag him for the next 2 years at the price of $18 million and $23 million. So if you average those 3 years at those franchise tags and fifth-year option together, Quinnen is under control by the Jets for an average of $17 million a year for the next 3 years. So Douglas, you better believe Douglas knows that, and you better believe Quinnen knows that. And I don't think Douglas is going to explicitly say that, but I think Douglas is going to say, hey, we're going to offer you $22 million a year. That's $5 million more per year than the Jets have to do. We're going to make you the second highest paid defensive tackle in the league. We're going to guarantee you the money, for at least 3 years, and we're going to get it done. Let's go to work. Let's go win a Super Bowl. And then if Quinnen, sticks his nose up at that, his ass is gone. I'm sorry. If you want more than $22 million a year and the Jets have your contract for $17 million a year for the next 3, I'm either going to tag you and you're going to sit and like it, or you're getting traded for all the picks that we could get. So I think Quinnen's going to understand it. I think he's going to be here a long time. And I think when you approach the situation like, hey, look, the Jets are going to do right by Quinnen. Quinnen just has to do right by the Jets by not, demanding some crazy, insane contract. And as long as that they kind of meet that, threshold in the middle, I think a deal will get done. But I don't think it'll happen until closer to training camp. Ryan, only Broadway Joe can rock a fur coat like you described. Try a raccoon coat. I'll wear a raccoon coat. I don't care. It could be a knockoff version of it. I'm all about it. I like dressing up in costumes. I have fun with it. I've gone snowboarding in a banana costume, in a tank top and a Santa suit, in a suit and tie. I like dressing up. Halloween's a fun holiday. Ricky from New York says, Sutton is a first down machine, always just past the sticks, one of my favorite parts of his tape, and a huge bonus guy who moves the chains. Can't be upset with that. Big Al says, you are lost if you think JD can sell Jacoby Brissett to this fan base as a starter. Absolutely lost. No, I'm not saying he can sell it. I'm saying, like, if every option is exhausted. Like, I think we're going to poke around Lamar. If Lamar and Rodgers are both gone and Jimmy G goes to the Raiders, I expect us to make a call to Dallas to inquire about Dak. I would think we make calls to other teams about their franchise quarterbacks before moving on to, like, the Brissett level of guys. But I do think that I have no problem with Brissett. If there's a situation where you have to pay maybe a sizable contract to someone like a Gardner Minshew or something along those lines, or you could even argue with Jimmy G. Like, if you think Jimmy G's not going to stay healthy, and it's almost the same conversation with Carr, like, do you think he can get you to that Super Bowl, or would you prefer to save your money and continue to keep building? It's a hard pill to swallow, and I don't think you sell it to the fan base, but I think that is a direction the Jets could go if everything goes the wrong way for us. Ryan Woodledge says, Miami Dolphins would trade Tua, the Jets, for picks. I don't want Tua because I don't think Tua should continue playing. I think he should retire. If Tua didn't have the injuries, I would love to sign Tua. He played really well while he was on the field. I think for his own health, he would not, should not do that. Chris says, breaking from Tom Pelissaro, so hopefully this is accurate here. He says, Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson has informed the team he would like to play elsewhere in 2023 and not with the Ravens. The Ravens are now likely to franchise tag Lamar. So I wonder what that means then. Is that the exclusive tag? I would have to imagine. If you're not planning on matching the contract, then as a team, the Ravens would want to say, let's trade you. Go find the package wherever you want to go. We are going to move you, and we'll work out the trade compensation. Because I do think he's worth more than 2 first-round picks on the non-exclusive tag. So I do think he gets hit with the exclusive tag, and he winds up getting moved, and he'll be allowed to search out that contract. And he'll sign the deal once he has another contract sort of lined up. Like, yeah, it's weird because you have to be under contract to be allowed to talk to other teams? I don't know if you have to. Like, I don't know if Lamar, because I don't think Lamar would want to necessarily sign the franchise tag before a trade is completed, because then, in a sense, you could maybe hold on to him. I don't know. I think he's going elsewhere. I think he's probably going to Atlanta. That's where I'm thinking. And I think they're going to give up a monster haul of picks. I don't know if the Jets are going to be in on that. But it does give us a little leverage. It's like, hey, Rodgers, come on. We're possibly pulling the trigger on Lamar. It's got to be Rodgers. I think we find out before 4 o'clock. I hope we do at least. Make for a fun Talking Jets panel tonight. Regal the Pup says, Tua got hit so hard he threw up gang signs while unconscious. If that happens in MMA, you can't fight for months. This guy was playing football in weeks. He was playing football. Let's see. He got... Oh yeah, within weeks, because that was the second hit, right? Like when he got like all starched up. That was scary. That and the DeMar Hamlin thing this year were 2 of the scarier things I've seen on a football field in a little bit of time here. And there were a few hits on primetime football that like had guys wobbling and falling over. Like I sit and watch it with a few different guys here and we rotate houses, and we're sitting here watching. I'm like, yo, that guy's like the wobble. When you get that wobble coming up, it's scary stuff. I think Tua should retire, honestly, and I think he would. I think he could settle with the NFL and get a lot of money to do it. Chris Curtis says, "Do you think Tom Brady will come out of retirement and go to the Fins?" I think it's possible. I think we won't hear about it until September because I think they'll want to see what goes on with Tua, how they draft. Asking Brady to come out of retirement now versus in September is a totally different ask. And I think both the Dolphins and 49ers are going to be in on that conversation. And I hope he goes to the 49ers. I don't know, because Miami is where his kids are, and he doesn't have to move states, where San Francisco is his like hometown favorite team. Stadium report that Gardner Johnson, Hargrave, and Bradbury are set to hit the open market. Jets will be sniffing around. Big also says, Ryan, I go Mike White over Brissett. I'd go both. I don't think Brissett is a whole lot of money, and I think Mike White won't cost you a whole lot of money. And I think the team really likes Mike White. I think if Mike White didn't get hurt, he would be the leader in the clubhouse as far as coming back, outside of maybe a Rodgers signing or something along those lines. Rico says, unreal that multiple number 1 and number 2 overall NFL quarterback draft picks are available. Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, Wentz, Mitch Trubisky, Baker Mayfield, and then Kyler Murray and Zach Wilson may be added to this list next year. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors that go out and a lot of projection that goes out too. Like if these guys are taken at the first or second pick, every coach is going to see that evaluation, and they're going to say, I can be the guy that turns that around. I am a good enough coach. That is where the ego comes in. I think that's why you see these guys bounce around a lot. And not to mention, most of the NFL, or a large percentage of the NFL, is former first-round picks finding a new home and playing as a depth player on another team. We'll see. Jerry says, what are your thoughts on smoked meats, Ryan? I really like spicy cabanossi. There's a local deli near here that does some spicy cabanossi. It's like a real Slim Jim. Really like that. They're good. David D, what does Rodgers' girlfriend look like? Look it up. If you made as much money as Aaron Rodgers and were as successful as Aaron Rodgers, you use your context clues. Dupacabra, I'm sorry, but I feel Rodgers to Jets is all just clickbait. Well, they're the trending topics for sure. I don't know how much it's clickbait when he's actually talking to the Jets. Mike Lemecki says, do you expect Rodgers to have a better season than he did last year? Will you be satisfied if he plays to a similar level this year? I would expect him to play better with Nathaniel Hackett. I would expect him to play better without a broken thumb. And I would expect him to have a better team overall around him. I don't think the Packers are necessarily a bad team, which is why you could have seen him want to stay there and they could have run it back. But I think it's more so because they like Jordan Love at this point more than they feel they need to win with Aaron Rodgers right now. So would I want to have a similar season? I would be hoping for more than that. But I think that type of season from Rodgers could have won the AFC East for the Jets last year. I would say hopefully it's a lot more than that though. Jets Mania says, why do you guys keep saying Rodgers will play because of the $100 million? I don't believe that money is part of the conversation. He made so much money. Believe me, he is set for generations. He is set for generations, but if you had the opportunity, take the amount of money out of the picture, and you said, hey, for 18 years of your working career, you made this amount of money. If you work for the next 2, you can make 25% of your total career earnings. in those 2 years. That's what Aaron Rodgers is being asked to do. He made $300 million through the first 18 years of his NFL career. He's getting $110 million over the next 2. If you were Aaron Rodgers and you already had $300 million, but you had the opportunity to just show up and not retire, like that's the concern too. Like he could just show up and collect the money. Now you assume he's probably going to get, he's going to be all invested. I think a lot of stuff winds up happening. But I think the money is definitely a factor for Rodgers wanting to play. It's not the only one, but I think it is a big factor. Ace Tag 31 question. Let's say we get Aaron Rodgers and he mentors Zach. You still got to pay Zach. So what would you do? I think Zach gets a redshirt year. You try to evaluate Zach behind Rodgers this whole season. There's even a conversation you can have with, like, if Rodgers does come to New York, how many snaps do we want him taking in training camp? Like, maybe we do want to get as much of an evaluation on Zach as possible. At that point, I would say let's have 2 quarterbacks. Let's have Rodgers taking the snaps with the ones, and let's have Zach taking all the other snaps. And then in the panic situation of, okay, Rodgers got hurt at some point in the season, then you're bringing someone else in. But I think if Rodgers goes down, you're probably almost admitting defeat at that point. But I think you could argue that Rodgers can mentor Zach, and Zach can take a lot of snaps in preseason, groom him behind Rodgers. You decide on his 5th-year option after the draft next year. So you can even sit here, not exercise Zach's option, go through the whole draft. If a quarterback you really like falls to you, or you find a trade that you don't have to give up a crazy ton to go up because you're not super convinced on Zach Wilson, then you figure it out. The other option that the Jets could do is they could say, hey, look, Zach, we want to give you these next 2 years. We think you're ready to go. We can't justify giving you, this particular 5th-year option, but we'll sign you for the next 2 years. We'll give you the money that you would have gotten in that first year in like a signing bonus, and then we'll have you on a lower cap hit the next year. I think that's possible, and I think if the Jets show enough devotion to Zach at that point, maybe he'd consider something like that. I don't know how much his market's going to be after sitting 2 years behind Rodgers and showing 23 games of bad tape prior to that. So I think the Jets could renegotiate a contract for a lower value than maybe the 5th-year option. What is your record prediction with Rodgers this year? I think 13 wins. I think the Jets can get to 13-4 with him. Dirty old Jets fan. What's up, Walt? He says, dude, I'm worried all this finagling with Rodgers will make Rodgers look like a diva in some of the players' eyes before he even gets in the building. Yeah, you don't want to have a situation where it's like Russell Wilson coming into Denver, where he gets his own office and he gets this monster contract, but he never proved anything to the Jets. He's only proved his thing in Denver, or only proved his thing in Seattle. It could be something similar, I guess. I think Rodgers and Russell are both established enough. There was a lot of rumblings in Seattle about players not liking Russ, like during the early parts of the Legion of Boom, where they were like, there was like team anti-Russ and team Russ, and there was that strong divide there. I don't know if it necessarily happens the same with Rodgers. I think it'd be more of an issue with like Zach taking on that persona and then players maybe not liking Zach. I don't know. Joe Anthony says, do you think Packers put Bakhtiari in the deal with Rodgers, or does Green Bay keep Bakhtiari to protect Love? Imagine a situation where the Jets trade Mekhi Becton and like we get Bakhtiari or something like that. Like, I don't think that would be what happens. But if they need someone to be the blindside protector of Rodgers, of Jordan Love, and they don't, and that's like the hang up, they don't want to give up Bakhtiari, but Rodgers wants Bakhtiari. Maybe there's a situation where you either send one of our tackles, which I would think would have to be Mekhi Becton, which I don't think is actually going to happen, or you can wind up having the option maybe to go from the 13 pick to the 15 pick, and now the Packers move up to 13. Maybe they have a better shot at getting a tackle because they're in front of the Patriots now. I do think Bakhtiari could come over in this trade, and I think that's why it's being hung up so long, is because there's contracts that have to be restructured on multiple fronts. There's picks that have to be decided upon with multiple players. I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Silas says, Jesse Bates or Chauncey Gardner Johnson, Ryan. Neither. I'll be honest. I like both players. I think I would prefer to go a cheaper route on the safety side of things. I would go Jimmy Ward, Adrian Amos for like dirt cheap, and then maybe spend a little bit more on like a linebacker. Like maybe you can get Tremaine Edmonds from Buffalo, give him a little money to go against Buffalo each year. I would like that. I don't necessarily want to spend a lot on a safety though. Tigo says Russ is different. Like Russ seems to go out of his way to be an asshole, in my opinion. Like what player forces his staff to have an office in the building. Like what? Yeah, the whole the office in the building thing was weird. I think Russ is the issue out there more than anything. I think getting Sean Payton was the only way they could have a bigger star than Russ in the building, and that's why they wound up paying him. Ryan, you need to do the entire show with your hat and goggles on. When the Jets sign Rodgers, if it happens, the goggles are coming on. That's the exciting news stuff. This is exciting, but we're talking here. Percy Haskell says, nice try. You guys want Bakhtiari too? LOL. I mean, geez, why not take Watson and Aaron Jones too, and Kenny Clark, and laugh my ass off. I think the reason with Bakhtiari is because Rodgers has named Bakhtiari as one of the players he wants to have follow him. So he's mentioned Bakhtiari, Cobb, Lazard, and Mercedes Lewis, and I think it was Mason Crosby. It just so happens that the Jets could literally accommodate every single one of those players. Like Cobb could replace Braxton Berrios as our backup slot option. He's on a voided contract, so he's going to be a free agent. You have Lazard, who could replace Corey Davis, who's going to be a free agent. I think he's going to wind up wanting more money, so I don't think he does ultimately come here. The Jets don't have a kicker under contract right now. I think a lot of us want to bring back Greg Zuerlein, but if Mason Crosby becomes available, cool. Tight end-wise, Mercedes Lewis seems like the one that may not fit quite so well because you have Uzoma and you have Conklin. So he would be maybe the odd man out there. But Bakhtiari seems like it would make a lot of sense too. And then you guys would get a higher draft pick because of it too. Like if you were thinking about, okay, is Bakhtiari your guy? Is that like your left tackle for the future? I don't know. I think it's less likely he comes over now that Dwayne Brown has said he's coming back not out of retirement, but he's going to return for his 17th season. So I think Brown is anticipating being the starting left tackle where, maybe he's the guy that's in front of the rookie that we select at 13. I think that's more likely the route than also bring in Bakhtiari, but I think it's on the table. Dupacabra says, we need to put all resources into D-line and safeties and linebackers because that's what makes this defense elite, instead of safeties and linebackers. Well, yeah, we're going to. We have Quinnen Williams. We're going to give him a lot of money. We've drafted a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick to be on the defensive line. You were seemingly going to give the first or second-round tender to Bryce Huff. So we are spending money there. It's just we're spending assets as opposed to dollars on the defensive line, with the exception of Quinnen. But yeah, I agree. I think defensive line first and foremost is important. Defensive line and then offensive line. Those two are the most important things. Victory Monday says, what's your opinion on how the Jets organization ranked in the player survey? I think it probably makes sense. We were like lower middle of the pack. I think when we finish up 19th or 20th, I think that has a lot to do. Now remember, this survey was taken from players on our team in 2021, not last year. So I do think that could be good or bad for the Jets. I mean, the Jets going and not having a great last half of the season could have skewed that one way. And the toxicity level of maybe the Zach Wilson stuff did not factor into our grade for players' families' treatment. But next year I'd expect that number to be lower. Salah had a weird comment where he's just like, I'm in touch with like 10 other teams and they all run similar practices and stuff like that. So I think he kind of took it to heart a little bit. I don't think we're doing anything different. I think if the Jets start winning, some of those other things go up with it. And I think maybe negative perception just by being a Jet might impact the results a little bit. It also depends on how many players voted, because I think 60% of players voted in total, and we don't know how many of those were Jet players. Like you could have a heavy voting turnout for one team, and then you get a really concrete determination of a team. Or you could have a team where everyone's like, screw this, I'm not overly motivated, I'm not answering that, and then you don't get as many answers, and then the results skew things, pretty far as well. Tigo says, is anyone concerned about the Texans being a big competitor for Jets free agent targets? Because I am. They have cap space and can afford to overpay for them and no taxes. I don't know. I'm worried. I agree. I think any player that would want to play in a San Francisco 49ers defense would choose the Texans and DeMeco Ryans over Robert Saleh and the high-priced New York Jets. Now, I think it depends on where they're at in their career. Like, I think Jimmy Ward, at his stage of his career, could be ring hunting and want to come here, where someone like Quan Alexander, who's a little bit younger, may want to go and get the money and the contract from the Texans. I think it's possible to have that two different ways. I would say guys that want the money are going to Houston if they don't care about winning. If they care about winning, they're going to come towards us. Jetsmania says, Rodgers can be a loose cannon if he's not happy. What happens if the first year goes bad and he won't play year 2? That would be bad. All the money and picks for him to quit on us. Well, there would definitely be contingencies in there. There's no way the Jets give up like a first-round pick next year without it being tied to Rodgers returning. There's no shot that happens. As far as what happens if he hangs it up after a year, I think that's a risk you take, and you just say, okay, that's fine. I'm going to gamble on the fact that he wants to be, an on-the-field GM, which is essentially what he would be doing if he winds up signing up to coming over to New York. And I think he likes having that sort of power. I would not have any sort of concern about it, not to mention he wants to rework his contract or is willing to rework his contract. If he was not willing to rework his contract, the worst case scenario in terms of financial liability for the Jets would be a $45 million dead cap hit in 2024 if he retires just after the Super Bowl. I think if he was going to contemplate retirement, they would move that deadline a little bit so that way that bonus option doesn't hit when it needs to hit. But yeah, I don't think it's bad. I think you can still have a Super Bowl push for 1 year and still have success, similarly to the way the Jets had success with 1 year of Favre and then 2 years of Sanchez. I think you could do something in that same vein. Rusty Sprinter says, Ryan, could you show a list of 2023 free agents in our positions of need, like a reverse draft mock, if you will? I'd have to figure out how to do that. I don't know if I feel like sitting and making that graphic. I do have something that ticks through on the Monday show that'll show like levels of like what team needs are, the top prospective draft picks, things of that nature. All right. Well, I'm going to hop off this. There's 77% of you out of 740 votes that think I should do a Pat McAfee stream. So I guess maybe I'll schedule that and you guys will see the alert pop up. And then we can just sit here and watch it. We can just talk a little bit more football and Aaron Rodgers and commiserate. But we'll see. Maybe if the little girl Shay doesn't cooperate or something along those lines, I might have to go into dad mode. But let's recap real quick what we were talking about. Aaron Rodgers per Trey Wingo has been talking with the New York Jets. Nothing is imminent. Rodgers is open to the idea of going to New York. And I think that's going to be the most likely place he lands. And I don't think it's going to be for a first-round pick. I think it's going to be a second-round pick plus some extra stuff. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments section down below. Does this mean anything? Is it a nothing burger? Let me know. As always, go Jets.